Welcome to this planning committee on Thursday, 11th of January. My name's Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the ward councillor for Bamber Bridge West, and I am the chair of this committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is being streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending the meeting because you are a member of the public or was registered to vote, you have 4 minutes to speak. You will be timed, and at the end of the 4 minutes, I will ask you to tie up and finish. Come forward to the mic, press the speak button, and make your representations. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic voting system, and the outcome of the vote will then be confirmed by our legal officer, Alex, once complete. If you have mobile phones, please can you switch them on to silent or switch them off, whichever you prefer. And we're not anticipating a fire alarm. So if the fire alarm does go, if the fire alarm does go off, we'll meet. The fire exits are behind you and we'll meet on the car park. Okay, if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, beginning with the young gentleman on my left.
Good evening, Alex Jackson, Legal Services Team Leader.
Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Evening, Old Councillor Wesley Roberts, Councillor for Buckshall and Worden, substituting this evening for Councillor Catherine Unsworth.
Councillor Matthew Farnworth, representing Seven Stars Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, and I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, I'm David Shaw, representing Howick Priory in Penwortham.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharples, representing Earnshaw Bridge and substituting for Councillor Will Adams.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Samsbury and Walton Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Hayden Williams, representing Leyland Central.
Councillor Damien Bretherton, representing Walton Liddale West, and I'm substituting for Councillor Mary Green.
Good evening, Councillor Elaine Stringfellow, Ward Councillor for Lostock Hall and Vice Chair.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Chris Sowerby, Development Planning Team Leader.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Elizabeth Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement.
All right, thanks everyone. Right, so we've covered apologies, I think. I'd like to thank all the substitutes for attending this evening. We'll move swiftly on to item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest on the meeting this evening? Councillor Williams.
Yes, items number 7 and 8. I'm a member of Farrington Parish Council. There are some comments made in the reports, but I was out of the room when any comments were discussed at Farrington Parish meetings, so it doesn't prejudice anything that I might say in the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. All right, I have read and agree with the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of December. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Smith, thank you very much. Could we go to the electronic vote? Don't forget, if you're a sub and you weren't here on the night, you need to abstain from the vote. Alex?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that members have voted to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as a correct record.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, appeal decisions. Catherine, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received 1 appeal decision since the last meeting, and that's for Gables Farm, Livery Stables, Lindell Lane and Hutton. The application was considered by the Planning Committee, and I believe it was deferred. Before it could come back to committee, an appeal was made for non-determination. A report was brought to July Planning Committee to seek the views of the committee as to whether to defend the appeal, whether it's something that on balance members would have been supportive of. And although it was determined that we wouldn't defend the appeal, the inspector has concluded that the development would have an impact on residential amenity and therefore has dismissed the application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. Just for the committee, just to let you know from your electronic agendas, I've moved one of the applications this evening forward. That's the ground floor unit at Worden Hall. The officer presenting both the first two these items has got a very, very annoying tickly cough. And we all think it'd be best if she did the two presentations and then left to let us get on with the rest of the meeting in peace. Okay. So item number 6, Lancashire Constabulary Headquarters, Hutton. Debbie, if you'd like to present this item, please. And I'd like to thank yourself and Catherine for attending the site visit with us and the two individuals over there. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll apologise in advance for what's going to happen. Right, nothing's happening. Yeah. Try again. Okay, here we go. Okay, the proposal relates to, is that very loud? Because that's really loud where I'm sat. No. Relates to two functionally connected but separate sites. The main Lancashire Constabulary HQ site on Saunders Lane in Hutton, which is this one, and the second site in Lindell Lane in Hutton, which I'll show you, and that's home to the mounted and the dog handling branches. The development site edge is in red, but if you can see the blue parts, they're land ownership as well, just to get the context of the site. Saunders Lane, which is on the screen, is covered by policies G7, which is green infrastructure, and that covers the playing fields and the recreation areas. And the whole site is classed as green belt. That washes over everywhere. It functions as the main Lancashire Police headquarters. It comprises a variety of buildings in different sizes. Most aren't fit for purpose or for modern policing methods, and they need attention. Most of you went to the site on Saturday and saw that for yourselves. Also, modern policing practices necessitate a different approach, so these proposals seek to address that. The access off the site there are 2 points. There's the main gate of Saunders Lane, which is towards the site centre. There's a lesser used secondary gate around here in the north. And in front of the site on Saunders Lane, around here, is a small unmade road called Hutton Hall Avenue, and that's currently used for ad hoc parking. It's parallel between the headquarters site and Saunders Lane. There's also a field gate around this area. It's not often used, but there is an access in the site, and it is a possible alternative. To the north is open land and woodland, beyond which is Liverpool Road. To the east are dwellings on Hewitt Close, and there is open land beyond those. To the west and southwest is Saunders Lane with dwellings, a major roundabout junction and commercial premises beyond, and to the south is residential on Saunders Lane. I'm really sorry about this. Okay, turning to Lindell Lane, it's also green belt and access is from the northern side. Again, the red edge is the site boundary, the blue bits are extended land in the same ownership. The site comprises 3 parts. Lancashire Constabulary Mounted Unit site, which is stables, offices, riding school, ancillary buildings, and they're on the northeast side. A similar complex of buildings, but associated with the dog handling unit on the western side. And in this bit here is Home Mead, which is a former dwelling. It's most recently been used as office space. That's in the northeast corner. Parallel 4.2.13 of your report says it's currently used as office space. It's not been used for many years, and it's in a really bad state of affairs. The whole complex is screened by mature trees and hedgerow, and it's surrounded by primarily open land, although there is residential on Port Lane, which runs along the eastern boundary. These properties here are new build development. Okay, the proposal is a hybrid. It's a very long presentation, I do apologise. Proposal's a hybrid permission which redevelops both sites, and it comprises a full application to develop Saunders Lane, which is phases 1 and 2, and Lindell Lane, which is phase 3, and the outline application relating to master plan phases 4 and 7. They're Saunders Lane only. I will jump between the sites a bit, so just bear with me, but the orange bit on this slide is the full application site for Saunders Lane. The bit on the left-hand side within the red edge, and this bit is part of the outline. Lindell Lane is all within the full application site. Staff numbers on neither are expected to rise. Parking will be reconfigured through both sites, but it won't increase traffic, and there aren't expected to be any additional staff employed on site. And it's phased roughly over a 10 to 12 year period. Across both sites will be a cumulative net gain of 980 square metres of floor area. Okay. Quite an important part of the scheme is the demolition. On Saunders Lane, it will be done in 2 phases, referred in documents as phase 2 and either end phase or phase A, depending on which document you look at. And they relate to the full and the outline respectively. By the end of phase 2 on Saunders Lane, would remove 30 buildings, including accommodation blocks, and they're the ones in pale pink. Excuse me. To the front. At the front and rear of the HQ office building, their extensions will also be removed. The central section will remain and it'll be redeveloped. By the end of phase 8, the demolition of the remaining buildings in darker red will occur. On Lindell Lane, it's the red buildings again. This is limited to removal of the old stables to make way for extensions and 2 small kennel buildings which will be replaced. We have all the relevant ecological assessment in place for the demolition phases, and conditions recommended should work be delayed beyond April 2024. Okay. Excuse me. Turning to redevelopment bit, Saunders Lane in summary is for redevelopment of the main HQ building, which is here. Gatehouse access alterations and a visitor car park outside of the secure fence line. A replacement vehicle maintenance unit, ancillary buildings and a car park. And I'll call those the VMU from now on. A deck car park reconfiguration and landscaping across all areas of the site, and a relocated memorial garden. Plus 2 new access roads, one off Saunders Lane, which comes through from the HQ access and comes out on Saunders Lane. The field gate I mentioned earlier is roughly here, and it will be relocated with appropriate sight lines and relevant highway works to a more straight area, a lot more safe access. It does run behind the houses on Saunders Lane, but the gardens are between 50 and 80 metres distant, so it will be away from the dwellings themselves. The road itself will be 70 metres long, and it will be secured by internal fencing, so it will allow for emergency service vehicles and parking, but outside of secure areas. Just a photograph of the existing field gate, and it will be relocated round this corner. I couldn't get a proper photograph of it. I'm ever sorry, it was too difficult to do. Lancashire County Council Highways confirm it's acceptable, and the internal access would just reconnect existing and proposed circulatory routes through that point. Okay. The main headquarter buildings. This is the most dominant structure in the site, and it sits at right angles to the main access. The front and rear extensions will be removed and a new extension put onto the northern side. So that's on the north. Sorry, my brain went. External plant rooms to house sustainable energy systems are proposed for both ends, and the southern facade would remain, and there'd be general cosmetic upgrade of the whole building. Resulting structure will be a lot more coherent in design and more suited to modern working practices. Okay, now it wasn't possible for me to get photographs inside the site, so we're relying a little bit on Google Earth. As I said, most of you have been present on the site visit, so you know what things are. But this photograph is the existing HQ building. Access is on the right, just off the picture, and the VMU is on the left. There's scattered parking throughout, and the scheme seeks to regularise this into a more organised pattern. The gatehouse proposed adjacent to the main access will be 2 new gatehouse buildings, a larger one which will be north of the access point, and a smaller one which will be adjacent to the egress on the central reservation. Visitors' car park and outside the security fence would also be adjacent to this. That would offer 73 spaces, which will improve parking on Hutton Hall Avenue, Saunders Lane, and just outside the site, which is already a problem. The VMU support and ancillary buildings, the complex of the VMU complex area will be 2 replacement buildings with an ancillary car park, and they will be beyond the rear of the deep garden of Saunders Lane dwellings. The VMU building is the larger of the 2, majority 11 metres high, reduces to about 8 metres as it gets towards Saunders Lane. It'd be finished in a glazed and clad exterior, and there will be access from the northwest side. The VMU support building is the smaller of the 2 buildings, and it's north of the outdoor parking area, south of the VMU. I'll show you all these on a plan in a second. And the surface car park will be for contractors, emergency and visitor vehicles, 186 spaces, direct access to internal routes, but it will be secured outside of the main site by a 2.4 high mesh fencing. And this is the existing VMU. Services approximately 1,100 vehicles at the moment. To the south of the HQ building will be a deck car park. It will be L-shaped, roughly 25 to 39 metres by about 108 to 126 metres footprint, 283 spaces, plus 16 DDA compliant and 15 with charging points. So a total of 314 spaces on that one. It was originally suggested at 3 stories, but since we've had comments from residents, it's been reduced to a 2-floor. Now that's surface parking and 1 story. It's not 2 stories on top of the surface, it's just a surface parking and 1 story. And when I checked plans today, the maximum height will be 6 metres, and that's less than a 2-story dwelling. Okay, and this, where the red dotted edge is the site of the deck car park. Excuse me. The closest house is 35 metres beyond, and it has deep rear gardens. In this photograph, it's well screened. There is an additional landscaping plan. That's already been put forward and it's acceptable. But when we went on site, we discussed it with the agent, and we've asked for a little bit of a little bit more on this section. They've agreed to make sure that landscaping is fit for purpose in that particular area. As I mentioned earlier, it is surface parking plus 1 additional level. It sounds a lot worse than it is a deck car park, I think. And just pictures of where the deck car park will go. The HQ, this is from the rear, the VMU, and this is Longton Brook, which separates these from this first dwelling. Okay. Now, just before I go on to the outline bit, to put it all into context, this is the HQ building, which will be extended, the deck car park, the VMU complex with its car park, excuse me, and throughout the site where I've put, very artistically, I have to say, blue stars, that's decked and surface car park in the full, which is very roughly to the right of the dotted line, and the outline, which is very roughly to the left of the dotted line. The outline itself relates to master plan phases 4 and 7 for Saunders Lane only. Lindell Lane is all part of the full. They're only indicative plans, so we've no detail and they're not finalised, so they are subject to change at the reserve matters. But we're satisfied that parking and amenity arrangements proposed for the full also account for the indicative proposals for the outline. So there is sufficient amenity space and sufficient parking to cover the both if they come forward on this basis. The outline in summary provides for training and sleeping accommodation, a sports hall and firing range, proposed and relocated playing fields, surface and proposed deck car park. Across the whole site, there'll be 2,371 parking spaces, including DDA compliant and charging points to 10% standard. Currently, there is about 200 spaces on site that are improvised, so cars dumped in corners, on grass verges, all that sort of thing. This should regularise that, and it will certainly ease the parking situation outside the headquarter. There is also suggested a new access onto Liverpool Road roundabout from the northwestern side. Highways Authority have accepted parking provision and access excuse me, and the transport assessments are also acceptable. There's a lot of detail still to be agreed by the client, and the final design will be part of the reserve matters. But for the Highways Authority, the principle of development subject to conditions is acceptable. And that's on the outline access as well as the full side. There is an objection in the report from Sport England. They object on the basis of loss of playing fields and loss of community use, despite the fields being reconfigured where possible. And they have been reconfigured throughout the site. There is a slight loss, but where possible, that's been done. When we discussed it with the applicant, they're very clear that it's not possible because of security, access and chaperoning arrangements that community use it's just not going to happen. And that the pitches are unlikely to be used for staff either. Training is going to take place mostly inside new training accommodation. There's a very detailed discussion in the report from Sport England, who aren't a statutory consultee, and it's important to note that as a determining authority, we can disagree with Sport England. They're in a bit of a tricky position in that, unlike you with the power of judgment, their regulations don't allow them to remove that objection if there is loss. They agree with us, they understand the justification and they accept the circumstance, but their regulations won't lawfully allow them to withdraw their objection. So on that basis, you need to consider a sensible, balanced judgment, I think. Excuse me. Some of the conditions Sport England have requested, however, we have added to the recommendation. And again, just an overview, the outline, very, very roughly on this side. We've had a really strong landscaping plan. Now this one is for end phase 8. So this is completed at the end of sort of year 12. In phases 1 and 2, the landscaping will become concentrated more to the site centre and to the western side where there is demolition. Indicative outline plans also show landscaping, but those details may change subject to the reserve matters. The overall feel is an enhanced green field, more coherent approach to the existing site, which is it's not quite as planned as it could be. It's a little bit scattergunned. The final scheme will be more planned. There'll be abundant buffering, woodland planting along this section, I beg your pardon, that section where the proposed playing pitch is next to Hewitt Close. There'll be no floodlights. There will be ball stop netting. We've not got the detail of that, but we could secure that by condition. Excuse me. We have secured that by condition, and there is a condition for ball stop assessment, ball strike assessment. I'm sorry. West of the main access, there will be a relocated memorial garden with low-key seating areas, supplementary grassland, water gardens, drainage swales. It's a good scheme. And as I said earlier, along the section closest to residential properties on this side, we would ask for that to be bolstered a little bit. Playing fields will be retained between the HQ and existing office buildings around the site, and existing woodland retained where possible. There is also mitigatory native woodland planting to cover tree losses across both sites, and that will be on Saunders Lane. Subject to conditions, the arborist and the ecologist are satisfied with the plans for both sites. Okay. We're nearly there, honestly. Lindell Lane. Okay, we've done with Saunders Lane. So Lindell Lane, this is all full permission. It involves reconfiguration of the kennels and stable blocks in addition to restoration of Home Mead, which is the two-storey dwelling I mentioned earlier. That has been used for offices and ancillary use, but it will become the police's occupational health team site. There are 3 accesses into the site. The eastern one will be the entry egress point for Home Mead. The western is for the dog-mounted division, and the central will be restricted to exit only for service and horse box vehicles. All accesses will be secured by new gates and new 2.4 high security fence. That will bound the entire complex, and at the moment it's palisade fencing. So visually, particularly for the people in these houses along here, which aren't shown on this plan but recently developed, would be visually much better. There would also be reconfiguration of parking across the site, 166 spaces, no extras, but it will be a lot tidier, and cycle storage and vehicle charging points. The mounted unit, the existing stables are a 16-stable building towards the eastern boundary. They'll be partially demolished and replaced with a 6-unit stable block extension and an indoor arena. Maximum 8-metre ridge, reducing to the existing single storey, which is 5.3 metres, so no more than a 2-storey dwelling. Metal and timber cladding and outside facilities would remain as is. It is a tidy up of this site. 2 small kennels will be removed and replaced with 3 new kennel blocks, 1 with 4 long run kennels, 1 with a replacement kennel for 16 small kennels, and an isolation kennel with storage and office space. For context, and I don't have a lot of photographs, I'm sorry. This is Home Mead, which I have to say, this is in the applicant's own statement, but looks very good in the statement. It's not as nice and tidy as this. The stable and arena and the kennels, you can see they all need a little bit of TLC. We've done several rounds of public consultation, including pre-application, which was done by the applicant, and the representation for that, for and against, are in the report. Significant changes have been made on the back of residents' comments, but it's necessary for the site to function in a certain safe manner so that some changes are simply not possible. They've done what they can, but there are things that have been asked for that can't be done for policing reasons, for physical reasons, and this is a really good scheme in comparison to what was originally brought forward, but it isn't what everybody's asked for. There are bits and bobs that just can't be done. There's an in-depth Greenbelt assessment in the report, and it is compliant with relevant Greenbelt and other policy, and spatial separation and parking also accords with current standards set down by the council. On the basis of the information in the report before you, we would go with approval with conditions. There are 2 typos in the report. I was running out of steam by the time I typed this bit up. Condition 37, Appendix 1 on the outline, I'd like to remove that, please, because it refers to the reserved matters bit at the outline bit, and it's covered by Condition 30 of the outline. And just the title of Appendix 2 should read outline, not reserved matters. That was me. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that detailed report, Debbie. You did really well under the circumstances. Right. We have 3 people who have registered in objection to this application, and the first one is a Susan Fox. So, Susan Fox, if you'd like to come to the table. Oh, yeah, okay, you know what to do, don't you? You will be timed. You've got 4 minutes, okay?
Good evening, Chair, councillors and members of staff. Since I wrote my objection to this planning application, mainly on the basis of biodiversity and ecology, several ecological surveys have been undertaken to ascertain the number of wildlife species on site, their foraging grounds and habitats, but without any clear proposals to ensure that they will be protected during development and would thrive thereafter. Hedgehog should have been included too. Given the extensive size of the site, a comprehensive environmental impact assessment should be undertaken. It is stated that the proposed development requires the removal of 122 individual trees, too many in my opinion, which may or may not include a section of 2 out of 4 woodlands, which are currently protected by tree protection orders. Therefore, the number could be higher. The tree removal could lead to extensive flooding. There is also a hedgerow, which may or may not be subject to the hedgerow regulations of 1997. There's no detail about that. I am concerned that Longton Brook, a tributary of the River Douglas, would not be under the watchful eye of the Environment Agency, but I would dispute that anyway, as another tributary of the River Douglas in Longton, Hall Pool, was designated as the main river by the Environment Agency a few years ago. I should like to add that to the conditions set out in the background information, that legally there has to be an 8-metre gap between Longton Brook and any development. In Hall Pool and parts of Longton Brook, there is evidence of Norbenton's bats, frogs, 3 varieties of newts, toads, eels, sticklebacks, kingfishers, water shrews and water voles. No surveys have been undertaken to ascertain their presence in Longton Brook. The local authority has a duty to have regard to conserving biodiversity in Longton Brook. And all wildlife legislation has to be taken into consideration. The development could be a nature-friendly one. I refer you to the RSPB development, the RSPB with Barratt Housing development in Buckinghamshire, including amphibian and hedgehog highways, but instead it seems as though it's going to be a concrete jungle. I want to add that wildlife is on a knife edge in this country. Demolition of buildings causes huge amounts of carbon released into the atmosphere, and there are alternative options that release a fraction of the carbon of a new building. So I would suggest, as far as possible, refurbishment which offers clear advantages in terms of community impact, reuse of existing buildings, meeting climate change targets and cost. Although I feel the money would be better spent in the recruitment of police officers, especially a reconstituted wildlife team, focusing solely on wildlife, enforcing wildlife legislation. I just urge the councillors to reject the current application, which is rooted, it seems to me, in the destructive ideas of 1960s, 1970s, and encourage the applicant to produce a nature-friendly development, more in keeping with the era of biodiversity loss and climate change. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your representation, Susan. Debbie, do you have anything to give us some advice on those points made?
I do. I can understand that when you look at the public access system at the ecology submission, it appears to be quite thin on the ground. A lot of the surveys that we've had, and we've had a lot of surveys, can't be put online for security reasons. And then there are badger surveys which we're not lawfully allowed to put online either. And I'm sure Ms Fox understands that. Hedgerow removal will be part only of the outline permission should the new access point come forward, and that we can deal with later on. Longton Brook, the Environment Agency have confirmed they've no jurisdiction on that. It isn't a main river line, but it has been assessed as part of the larger ecology package. And conditions 31 to 37 of the full permission deal with ecological matters, including condition 31, which asks for an ecological management plan for protection of Longton Brook. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Debbie. Right, do we have Francis McLaughlin? Francis, are you speaking with Geraldine, or is Geraldine going to speak after you? Okay, if you'd like to take a seat, press the button. You have 4 minutes, okay? Don't apologise if it's not catching, I don't mind. Just take a seat, press the red button, introduce yourself.
My name is Francis McLaughlin, a resident of Saunders Lane. I object to elements of the planning application. They include, but are not limited to, the effect of the proposal on our living conditions, particularly air, noise, light pollution, and ongoing disturbance for a demolition and construction timescale suggested to be a 10-year period, with the future use following on from that. Decked car park and internal circulatory roads. Decked car parks are ugly, purely functional, Meccano-like in appearance and can be witnessed at Preston and Chorley railway stations. The proposed decked car park, similar in size to Preston bus station, will be in full view, looming over and in close proximity to our property. It will increase the current parking in that area by approximately 800% and is to be constructed just 20 metres from our building, not 35 metres, as incorrectly stated in the application documents. To exacerbate this matter, the on-off ramp to the car park is at that nearest point, with an estimated 2,000 plus vehicle movements per day at that point. If committee are minded to approve the application, we would ask for some safeguarding that no further decks can be added horizontally or vertically in perpetuity. To aggravate this threat to our health and well-being, there will be an internal circulatory road with two-way traffic between the deck car park and our property. The natural geographic feature dividing Police HQ property and ours is Longton Brook, running at an angle from alongside us to upstream behind us. The top of the brook bank from one side to the other is approximately 4 metres. The two-way internal circulatory road is tight up to the top of the brook bank, and therefore we will have traffic just 4 metres from our garden. If committee are minded to approve the application, there will be no limitation on staff and visitors to Police HQ using the circulatory road at any time of the day or night, every day of the year, clearly affording us no privacy. This will destroy any enjoyment of our home and garden with no respite. The internal circulatory road will run alongside our home and garden before turning south and continuing tight up to our back garden boundary at the rear, the VMU, making us in effect islanders, surrounded by Police HQ traffic flows. Imperfect and paucity of detail. Throughout the application, there are inaccurate dimensions quoted. Information has not been fully disclosed, made available, or is missing. Other details are vague and remain outstanding. I have cited the incorrect dimension between our home and the deck car park as one example. No height dimension is provided for the deck car park looming over our home. Why? What is that height dimension? And I've heard Debbie reference that tonight, but we've scoured it to try and find that. The noise assessment states assumptions have been made as all the details were not available to the consultee. The survey was minimal and at some 110 metres from our home, when the on-off ramp of the deck car park is only 20 metres from our home, and with the internal circulatory roadway just 4 metres from our garden. Why was this nearest pinch point excluded from the noise assessment? What were the weather conditions at the time of the survey, and whether the trees being in leaf gave a false impression of the rest of the year when the trees would not be in leaf? The existing noise assessment cannot be relied upon, and further surveys are required at the nearest point to our home and garden, and should allow for the impact on the human environment. We believe this will prove harmful to local amenities and adversely impact our living conditions for us, the nearest residential neighbours, by undermining our quality of life. Light pollution details remain unavailable and should be available to committee. This is one of our greatest concerns, as it will impact our health, well-being and amenity. Ecological harm cannot be ruled out without access to the lighting proposals. Where is the light assessment? The LCC Highways Consultee identifies inaccuracies, refers to failures and functions in the submitting plans, and goes on to call for plans to be produced which are consistent, clear and clarifying due to the contradictions
Mr. McLaughlin,
in the submitted drawings
please.
before any approval could be given. Have they been provided? If not, approval cannot be given. Most pointedly, the LCC consultee identifies that with the new access road off Liverpool Road, none of the existing access or proposed new access roads on Saunders Lane would be necessary, which I fully endorse, and so it should be part of the full planning application phase 1 and 2. In conclusion,
Mr. McLaughlin, that's 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
In conclusion, due to there being too much imperfect detail with many unanswered points, I ask for the decision to be deferred until all the imperfect detail, missing and outstanding information are presented and available to the committee to make an informed decision on whether to approve the application with amendments and conditions or refuse the application. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. McLaughlin. Geraldine McLaughlin, please.
Good evening, Chair, committee members and officers. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you. I'm Geraldine McLaughlin, a resident of Saunders Lane and a neighbour of Lancashire Police. Due to time constraints, I'll concentrate on areas that cause me most concern. There's a couple of statements I'd like you to consider. The design and access statement acknowledges the HQ site is in a rural location with the area along Longton Brook a designated wildlife corridor. Also, an article on the front page of the LEP in December 22 states a two-tier car park would be away from the line of sight. The proposed single-deck car park will run 126 metres along Longton Brook, the wildlife corridor, and the boundary with our property. Whether I'm inside our home or outside in our garden, it will be clearly visible and loom large. Contrary to the LEP article, it isn't away from the line of sight. The current one-way internal road beside the brook will become two-way, increasing the traffic running along the boundary, just 4 metres away from we sit to relax. The car park will be in use 24/7. We would no longer be able to use our garden fully due to the lack of privacy from car park users. Together with the resultant light, noise and air pollution, this will seriously impact on the enjoyment of our amenity. Currently, we experience the disruption around 40 parked cars along the boundary. And the application would see this number increase to 314. The planning report refers to mature trees surrounding our property. These are all deciduous with high canopies. There will be little or no screening when in leaf, and none at all in winter, particularly at a time when lighting will be in use from mid-afternoon to around 9 a.m. The proposed 2.4 metre high mesh fence, 4 metres from our garden, will not provide any cover from air, noise or light pollution at any of our boundaries with HQ. The planting currently proposed will have no effect in suppressing any pollutants during demolition, construction and beyond. A realistic acoustic barrier should be established prior to commencement of any work, consisting of solid fencing in conjunction with coniferous trees of a mature age. As at present, there is little or no cover at ground level due to the high canopy of existing trees and the higher ground level of HQ in relation to our ground level. Without this, we will be plagued by noise, air and light pollution from the internal road and the decked and VMU car parks. Royal Preston Hospital will refuse planning permission for a single-deck car park for the following reasons. Detrimental impact on amenities of residents abutting the site because of the unduly invasive impact due to height and proximity. Inadequate screening between it and residential properties, particularly when existing trees are not in leaf. Intensification of activity within that part of the site. We will face all of the same issues. When you choose to live in a rural location, not on the edge of a settlement urban location as described in the planning report, you wouldn't expect to see a decked car park similar to that at Chorley Railway Station, only metres away from your garden and clearly visible from all aspects of the property. We will also be faced with the disruption the proposed VMU car
Okay, Geraldine, can you start tying up now?
Yes.
You've done 4 minutes, thanks.
would have all along our back garden. This would have a large impact on our health and well-being as we currently enjoy tending our garden. We would cease to use it to the same extent. Finally, green space for staff to enjoy is being created in a north-facing centralised area at the expense of not only existing south-facing green space, but also current virgin greenfield. Why destroy green space with all its biodiversity?
Geraldine, you need to tie up now.
Only to
You've done
create
nearly 5 minutes.
only to create it in what is a developed area. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Debbie, would you like to come in and answer some of those questions before I bring in Councillor Margaret Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. The height of the deck car park at 6 metres is clearly noted on the proposal drawing. I checked it myself this afternoon, and the distances measured that are in the report are taken from the physical drawings that have been provided, and they do scale. I understand that residents feel this is a semi-rural location that shouldn't be developed, but there has to be considerable weight given to the fact that it is a backdrop of existing police headquarter site. It's been there since the 1930s. It is well developed and it's well used. We've already said there are 2,300 parking spaces on there. This is not a virgin site, and that needs to be taken into account. But we've also acknowledged that during the site visit, we felt some more screening was necessary on the corner between that property and the new roadway, and the agents already agreed to that. There is a landscaping condition on the full permission. There is one on the outline as well, but this would relate to the full permission. But we can tweak the wording of that. That's in your gift to make it a little bit stronger. And I think that will be necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Debbie, thanks very much for that. Can I also add that the decisions that are taken by Preston Planning Committee have got nothing whatsoever to do with South Ribble? Councillor Mrs Smith.
Good evening, Mr Chairman, members of the committee, and thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. The application before us this evening is one that will take a number of years to see its completion, and whilst we agree that headquarters requires considerable investment and upgrading, we have to be mindful of the impact that these changes will have on the police headquarters neighbours. For a number of years as ward councillor since the Penwitham bypass was built, we have actually been trying to reduce the traffic cutting through New Longton Village. We are making progress, but it is very slow. One of my main concerns is that the entrance to headquarters will continue via the gatehouse and the new access road off Saunders Lane for the vehicle maintenance unit. Is it possible to revisit this and look to open up the access off the A59 roundabout, which is scheduled for later in the scheme, to be brought forward to phase 1 so that the traffic going to headquarters would use the A582 and the A59, thereby alleviating the need to come through New Longton and down Saunders Lane? On the master plan at number 03, the decked car park is down as a single-storey unit, and I know Debbie has confirmed tonight it is 6 metres high, but there seems to be a little bit of an anomaly there, so maybe that is worth checking out. As regards construction and delivery traffic, can a condition be put on the planning application to require all construction traffic to use the A59 access or the new entrance if that was put in? Otherwise, they will possibly be coming down Saunders Lane and through the village. Similarly, the building material deliveries. And I would like to see put in place a delivery schedule for those building material deliveries so that it can be regulated, bearing in mind that this project will take up to 10 to 12 years. Condition 4 states that construction method statement will be submitted. Will this be made available to our residents for their consideration? Condition 8 is landscaping. Can this condition be strengthened? As Debbie has mentioned, I understand that the visit last week, it was found that there looked like it was inadequate. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that, but it seemed obvious the planting is required in the area near the deck car park. And could this be an evergreen variety to help with an all year round coverage? Also, condition 29 states that planting commences after the construction has finished. Is it possible, I know it's unusual, but is it possible to start the planting near the decked area this autumn in some areas to give it a head start maybe, and therefore it would be ahead of the construction of the deck car park? Condition 31 is the environmental management plan. Does this condition address the distances that the paths and roadways need to be away from Longton Brook? And condition 9, this is about pile driving. I wondered whether it would be possible to give the residents notice of pile driving and the duration of it, in the hope that if they just wish to be away from the noise, that they can actually take a few days away if the pile driving is going to take place. I have finished, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much to Debbie for all their help and assistance she's given to us. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I did actually email Ben. I did have an email from another resident who can't come. It is very short. I wondered if you permit me to actually read it to you.
Yes, I will, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. This is from Catherine Schoen, and she is also a resident of Saunders Lane. I am speaking on behalf of residents of Saunders Lane who are unable to, or for personal circumstances, cannot attend personally. Firstly, I would like to point out that New Longton / Hutton is a semi-rural location, not on the edge of a settlement urban location, as described in the planning report. Lindell Lane was described as such in the planning inspector's report for them, and Saunders Lane is no different. There doesn't appear to have been much change in the plans from the demolition of the Greenbelt land to the rear of our properties, or the construction of the proposed entrance in Saunders Lane, despite the obvious major flaws in these plans being pointed out. Changing the position of the entrance won't have any impact on the road, is clearly unsuitable, used to capacity and an accident risk. Police are not aware of many accidents in the road that are dealt with by the residents. I live there just after the bend and have dealt with and witnessed 5 in the many years. Residents live with the constant noise, traffic and disturbance from police headquarters, which is increasing, and our gardens are a respite and a means to distance ourselves from this. If the VMU is developed in the green belt land to the rear of our properties, there will be no escape, as we will be totally surrounded. The noise, light and traffic and loss of privacy created will severely impact on the well-being of residents and is wholeheartedly opposed. An entrance and the VMU, etc. on the lane will increase the traffic through New Longton Village, which is already a matter of great extreme concern. It is a small village with a high population of school-aged children and elderly, therefore rendering it unsuitable for such developments. We do agree that HQ needs updating, but it is suggested that they utilise the space already developed to meet their needs. Can right and arm training not take place in another area well away from the dwellings? She also requests that if it goes ahead, could they have some planting in the space between their gardens at the rear of the boundary and the fencing? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Smith. Debbie, could you address some of those issues for me, if you can?
I can. I can't say that I can bring the A59 access into phase 1. That's not in my gift. We're here to determine what has been put in front of us. Technically, the deck car park is single storey. It's surface parking with a single storey above it. We could be pedantic about words, but condition 3, construction management statement, that's a standard one, but we could ask or require the applicant to put the piling notice in there. The piling condition is a precautionary condition. Not all sites use it, and I don't know if this one will. It's a just in case condition. Construction and environmental management plan. I think that's sufficient. That's strong enough to cover Langton Brook and to cover everything we need. If the applicant wishes to start planting, they are able to do that. That's not a problem for us. But generally, planting is done within the first planting season following completion, because of the timing of planting, to make it the most successful, strong planting that we can get, and because planting gets damaged during construction. That's why we do it. There's no reason why the applicant can't do that in advance, but they have to do it within the first planting season following completion, and that would be following completion of the full or completion of the outline. Then we've got Ms. Sean's email. I would beg to differ on the difference between Saunders Lane and Lindle Lane. Lindle Lane's a very rural location, albeit slightly edge of settlement. Saunders Lane is almost sandwiched between Hutton and New Longton. It is semi-rural, certainly not a rural location. And the VMU isn't behind the houses on Saunders Lane. If you can see there, the car park is, but the VMU isn't. All right, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Debbie, thanks very much for your advice on that. Right, do we have the agent, Matthew Baldwin? It's not what I've got down here, but if that's what you wish, certainly, yes, yeah. Good evening, Andrew. You have 4 minutes to make your representations, okay? You can tell I get a bit irked when you overdo it.
You're very appreciate with my opening sentence then. So
Andrew,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those of you who know me, I'm Andrew Snowden, Police and Crime Commissioner for Lancashire. Those of you who know me, have heard me speak before, will know I rarely read out my speeches off a piece of paper, but I am on strict instructions to stick to time. So please do forgive me. And I won't take up the full 4 minutes because the agent will go through the technical details. Thank you for taking time to consider this large and complex report, especially with such a busy agenda. And also to the planning officers for diligently working with the constabulary and the agent to help them address any concerns and objections the best that we can. I'm personally here fronting this application, as such is the magnitude and urgency of the work that is required at police headquarters. It only takes a short amount of time to appreciate why 95% of the buildings on the 2 HQ sites are graded as unfit for purpose. When the last full new building was constructed at police headquarters, John Major was still Prime Minister. That is the length of time since major investment. There is an urgent need to create a fit-for-purpose headquarters that can support and enable an efficient and effective policing service for our county. The headquarters is far more than just offices. It hosts a number of operational, investigative and digital capabilities for the county. As it stands, Lancashire Constabulary are trying to run cutting-edge police servicing in the 2020s with infrastructure dating back to the 1960s. The proposal secures the site as a green, open and well-managed police headquarters. Other options that have been presented as part of feasibility studies are to sell the land and use it, apply for change of purposes. That is not what we want. It is not what the local community would want, and it would certainly not be what the local economy would want. This option will mean that headquarters is vastly improved visibly and operationally. The decaying 1916 buildings will be gone, and it will be an even more biodiverse site than it was at the start of the construction phase. It is a huge investment for the future of the local area, for policing in the county and for the economy of South Ribble. And I shall leave it at that short statement and hand over to the agent.
Okay, thanks very much for your representation, Andrew. Matthew. Okay, Matthew, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and committee members. As the agent, I'd like to cover a number of the key planning and technical constraints of the site and highlight these to the committee. Firstly, on site use, we're not proposing any change or intensification of the proposed activities or operations on either of the Saunders Lane or Lindell Lane sites. We're only seeking to upgrade, rationalise or consolidate existing site uses. In respect to the site entrance, yes, we do plan to retain the existing Saunders Lane site entrance, but with modifications to improve traffic flow, such as two-lane entry and a visitor car park before the secure line and gates. We're proposing a secondary access to the south on Saunders Lane for statutory compliance with emergency escape requirements and to alleviate delivery pressure on the main gate. In addition, we are seeking within the outline application and a potential future access to the A59. Unfortunately, it is not possible to accommodate that within the full application due to the nature of the existing buildings that sit on the northern end of the site. In principle, this access is acceptable to highways, and we will follow with further detail in future reserve matters applications, which will be made public. On parking, we have sought on the Saunders Lane site to rationalise the parking to provide formal marked bays, which translates to a real term increase of over 200 parking spaces on site, but without an uplift in number of personnel on site, to be clear. This is all aimed at alleviating pressure on Saunders Lane and the entrances to the site. To facilitate this, we have used deck car parking to ensure that this is provided in the most appropriate locations on site. Without this, we cannot facilitate the additional parking. On Sport England and their objection, I'd just like to reiterate that the playing fields within the centre of site have not been used for over 5 years, and security requirements do dictate that we cannot have these for community use. We are not proposing any changes to the playing fields north of the secure boundary, and we feel that the scheme that we have forward provides a balance in terms of the policy requirements, but also policing operational requirements on site, with amenity of residents protected via the use of the condition, which will require discharge prior to any installation of sports pitches. On the design itself, during the process, we have, where possible, amended the designs. A couple of examples of those being the removal of public order training from the Saunders Lane site after the public consultation, and also the relocation of one of the parking decks within the outline phase of the scheme to provide additional planting to the residential boundary of Hewitt Close. On sustainability, the scheme as a whole provides a significant sustainability benefit, with high performance buildings aligned with renewable energy installations, facilitating the constabulary's short, medium and long term decarbonisation strategies. I'd also like to reiterate that the scheme incorporates SUDS features and will provide a much better management of surface water across the site and the scheme, where possible, in natural swales and ponds and bioretention features. As part of this, an extensive and high quality landscaping scheme has been proposed with a mixture of woodland and native planting. We are conscious of the site's proximity to neighbouring residential properties, and therefore we are committing to additional screen planting to those boundaries to further improve the outlook from neighbouring properties. On ecology, all of the requisite surveys and reports have been carried out as part of the design process, and we are absolutely committed to providing a 10% net biodiversity gain across the scheme. 2 items just to cover. In terms of construction timescales, to clarify, this is not 10 to 12 years of construction on site. It's 10 to 12 years before the project will be complete. We are talking about, within the full application, around 2 to 3 years on site. So just to put that timescale into perspective. In addition, there is currently no expectation for piling, but we do take on board comments around notification to local residents. Finally, I'd like to conclude by saying that we welcome the case officer's verdict. The improvements to public safety must be balanced against any perceived harm caused by the development. And in this case, it is felt that benefits of maintaining, upgrading essential operational police facilities to a modern standard are considerable. This application, if approved, will secure facilities that will support frontline policing with a modern, flexible police headquarters, serving the residents of Lancashire for the long-term future.
Okay, that's great. I was just going to tell you to tie up. All right, Matthew, thanks very much for your representation. Right, we will now open this application up to committee. Anyone? Councillor Smith.
Well, I'll get. Sounds a bit loud, doesn't it? So I'll move a bit further away. We okay? Are we set up now? Right. I'll make a start on this, and I think I might come back later on when other members have spoken. There are lots of issues, but I mean, listening to what are the alternatives? Perhaps we shouldn't discuss the alternative. We need to discuss what we've got in front of us. But I know from personal experience over many years that the police and the police authority have actually been looking to move from Hutton to find somewhere that's more appropriate, give them more space, and let them upgrade and build new buildings. For me, that's probably one of the last things that I would want to see. The police and the staff that work there, certainly from my ward point of view, do cause us some aggravation, I have to say. But having them close by, I think, must be a great benefit to Hutton, to South Ribble, and the people that live locally. You're never far from a policeman, to be quite honest. So some people never see them, but we see plenty of them. So that's always a good thing. The plus 10% or more, 10% of the biodiversity. I mean, we've heard speakers say that with regard to the biodiversity is not good, and but the overall scheme, it would appear, and I'm sure Debbie will say so if necessary, but the overall scheme looks as though it will comply with the law with regard to biodiversity. If it does, that's a great gain, I have to say. I do think it's a great pity that on the start of redesigning police headquarters, it didn't start at Hutton Roundabout. I think it's a huge mistake, but we can only deal with what we can deal with. The danger is, of course, at some stage in 5 or 6 or 7 years' time that the money will have completely run out and it won't get done. And there lies the danger. But at least it is on the cards. It is on the agenda. It is there in planning detail, and we have that before us. No, Mr. McLaughlin, and he's spoken to me. I haven't spoken much to him, but he spoke to me quite a lot, and have had Margaret's, I know, had Councillor Mrs. Smith has had meetings with them, and I've listened to those meetings. There is a query about the distances from Mr. McLaughlin's house to the car park. I think in the plans it says 35 metres. I think Mr. McLaughlin said 20 metres. One's either right or wrong, or it's somewhere in the middle, but some confirmation of that would be some confirmation of that would be helpful. I am worried about Longton Brook, and the Environment Agency seemed to get involved with the Longton Brook when there was a planning application in Longton. So I'm not quite sure why they don't want to get involved with this one, because developments had to be, I think, at that stage something like 6 metres away from the brook itself. But we can only go. They're the experts. We're not. But I think that would probably need to be looked into. The car park, I'm grateful for the discussions that have gone on, because we're involved in some of the discussions 12 months ago, whatever it was, when initial applications or discussions were around with plans that may or might have come forward. And certainly with regard to the car parks, the moving of the car parks, the height of the car park, which has been reduced because it was a 3-storey one at one stage, which would have been, as far as we were concerned, completely unacceptable. And I understand why Mr. McLaughlin still thinks it's unacceptable, because it's next to his house and next to his garden. The other car park, of course, which was 3 stories high, or 2 stories and a ground floor, if we are using the planning terms, which was right next to the housing estate. That has, we are grateful, and I think the people that live there are grateful that has been moved substantially further back, and there's a good planting scheme put forward for that. I've got plenty of notes here, Chair, but I'm sure other people would like to speak. The traffic through New Longton is a problem. I would like to think that if this application does go through and it is approved and is started, that what Councillor Mrs. Smith was suggesting with regard to construction traffic, that would be completely unacceptable for that construction traffic to come through New Longton Village and up Saunders Lane. It would be much better for that to come down the bypass and come down the A59. It's less obtrusive to anybody. It almost goes straight into the site from that. I think that should be a given, and I don't know whether we can condition that. I'm not sure whether, when I looked at the conditions, I couldn't see anything with that, but that plan needs to happen, because that would be totally unacceptable. In fact, if that happened, I would be very tempted just to reject the application, but I won't, because I think the application is too important. I think we've waited far too long for this to happen, Chair and members. We've waited years and years and years. I mean, it seems not too long ago that the police horses were being taken away from us. I mean, for goodness sake, how can you do that? You know, they are one of the most valuable assets that we have there. With regard to the Lindell Lane site, and certainly with the dog kennels, the improvements, Lindell Lane site is across the fields from us, so we can hear the dogs barking, but it's only when the wind blows from the north, otherwise we don't hear it. But I believe they are now being warmed and insulated, so that is a good thing. So I'll listen to what other members have to say, Chair, and if I could come back shortly, that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Catherine on this one, Phil. Sorry, Councillor Smith, regarding the construction traffic issue on Saunders Lane. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So condition 4 deals with the construction method statement, and it does list the sorts of things that we'd be looking for the applicant to provide as part of that method statement. But one of the things you correctly point out that it doesn't actually include here is a routing plan for vehicles, construction vehicles coming to the site. So we could include that as an extra requirement as part of that condition.
Yeah, thank you. And if that could be included, I think that would be certainly helpful going forward, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, would you like to come in with the spatial aspects of Longton Brook?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Longton Brook is a main river at some point, but not at this point. in the same, it's the same as Hallpool in Longton. It is a main river, but at certain points it isn't. And the Environment Agency have confirmed at this point it isn't. In terms of measurements, I can only repeat what I said 10 minutes ago, that the plans we've been provided, and I have physical paper copies of them and the scale, are the report includes the measurements taken from those plans. There's not a lot else I can say about that. BNG requirement, the new regulations for BNG haven't been applied yet. They're imminent, but they've not been applied yet. And on the current standards, and as agreed with our ecologists, this scheme complies with all current BNG requirements. BNG regulations. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Debbie. Right, have a drink of water. Right, Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and be brief. I know I tend to wrap it on every now and again, but I'll try and be brief with this one. Thank you very much for taking us round the other day to get a site visit. It was really informative. It's very difficult to see on diagrams and drawings about and to visualise what's going on, but the visit certainly really did help. And it's great to see what was being enhanced and what's been replaced, and the context, the timing, and everything. And also Andrew Snowden's presentation as well. It's necessary for the police to have the tools that they need, not just in the short term, but also a long term into the future as well. And it's immediately obvious that the site and the buildings they've got are totally inadequate for the use going forward into the 21st century. And even though we're 20 odd years in, from a planning point of view, it seems like one of the main issues at the moment is around site access and safety and parking and things like that. It was explained that large vehicles moving around the site can't get in and out of the site properly, because there's only one way in, one way out. And obviously that's going to mean safety issues and inconvenience for those on Saunders Lane as well. And obviously that's going to get fixed by the new gatehouse, the new exits and entrances in and out, as well as the car park on the outside. It's going to make it more secure. There's more facilities for people for visiting. Sport England, whilst it's technical, I believe we did Sport England one a few months ago, that's missing in the context that these premises are first and foremost a police HQ. They're not a community sports facility, and it's good, and that's going to be acknowledged. And if the need ever arises for sports facilities, the provision's been made. So I'm not going to attach much weight to that. Changes at Lindell Lane are minimal. There's virtually little or no impact on the residents. It's just like an extension to the arena, and obviously the new kennel buildings, and obviously they're now going to be more fit for purpose and more and better for that. But also what's most pleasing is the reuse of an old building. We were talking before about demolishing and re-adding new stuff. Holmead is a beautiful building. It's shame it's got to the state that it's in, but it's great to see it's actually going to be restored and will be a fantastic facility for Lancashire Police and the officers that look after us. So we should look after them. So I would like to propose that we go along with the officer's recommendation and approve this application. So you've got a proposal from me to approve.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Williams. Councillor Farnworth.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to say that I feel it's a much needed transformation of Lancashire Constabulary's site. Having gone on the visit last weekend, I think we can all agree that it was really useful and informative of the requirements and on the site and the fact that it's clearly not fit for purpose for modern day policing. I just want to echo what Councillor Williams said about the Sport England concerns about the potential loss of green space in the pitches. It's not a community use area. It's first and foremost a police HQ. Welcome that there will be replacement perimeter fencing all across the police HQ site for security reasons, and we can all agree that the current fencing isn't fit for purpose and is really unsightly. I would like to see, and I welcome what Debbie said about the screening for residents on Saunders Lane, because having been on the site, I think that's a little bit of an issue. So if we can sort of mop that up, that'd be great. I remember, the deck car park. I seem to remember you mentioned, well, the agent said that it moves 90 degrees in consultation with residents, so that should be welcome. And I do appreciate residents' concerns, but it's only going to be one deck, so I don't think it would be, it's not a ridiculous height. And then going on to the Lindell Lane site, like Councillor Williams said, I'd be more than happy to approve it and second Councillor Williams' approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Foy. With Councillor David Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I was motivated to try and get your attention at the point about the routing of the vehicles. One thing that Councillor Williams mentioned during the site visit that I apologise if you have mentioned it here, is you've got to remember this is a police headquarters site with security. So it's not like it's not like your house building site with vehicles willy-nilly moving in and out all the time. The site has to be secure, so there's got to be a structured format to all of the movements to the site. And that will involve all the construction site and the materials coming in as well. But if we can add the additional item about the routing to get that agreed, that will perhaps help. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. I would actually suggest that we add into the conditions that the demolition vehicles and the construction vehicles don't use Saunders Lane. That should be conditioned on this application. That's what I personally think, but don't know about committee. Sorry, I don't. Yeah, I don't mean the main entrance. I mean the VMU entrance and exit. I mean the construction. Yes. Yeah. Was he as clear as mud then? No.
I think what you're asking, Chair, is that the construction vehicles, we want to get a routing plan for them to make sure they don't come through the villages, and we also want to make sure that where possible they don't come off the new access of Saunders Lane.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just one extra request, which I don't think came out, but Mr. McLaughlin quite clearly and Mr. McLaughlin quite clearly are surrounded by the site. I just wondered whether, with regard to the planting and the screening, whether there could be an extra meeting, maybe between Mr. Laughlin and the applicant or the agent that's putting together the planting, and maybe have some input into that. So at least that would make them a bit more content, I think, with perhaps that going forward. And maybe it could be hosted by Councillor Mrs. Smith, who's along with me, who's the ward councillor. I think that would also be helpful. It might just ease the matter, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Smith. Debbie, you can come on this, but I don't think they're obliged to speak to each other, are they?
I don't think it's an issue if they wish to speak to Mr. McLaughlin, but I think in the first instance we need details of a relevant landscaping scheme. We've already got one, but that augmented scheme with evergreen on that southern corner, which then will go to our specialists for assessment. Our arborists, our ecologists, they'll all look at that. That's not something we'll do in-house. We'll send that out to specialists. And I think it's best suited for that through the discharge of conditions process that the existing landscaping scheme would already be subject to. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Debbie.
Chair, if I could just come
yes,
in, please. I think what we're really looking at is not just amending condition 4 to add in a routing plan, but potentially rewording condition 29, because that refers to the approved landscaping scheme. And what we're really saying is what we want now is an additional planting along that boundary to be clearly shown in terms of some evergreen planting. So I think if we reworded that to ask for a revised landscaping scheme to be submitted and then implemented once we'd approved it.
That's great. Thanks, Catherine. Right, so I have had proposal for approval from Councillor Molyneux.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's really good this evening to see that investments being made into the headquarters at Hutton. I personally think it's a coup that South Ribble's got headquarters in our area. You know, and the fact that we're talking about new investments, new movements, updating the police side of it is good news from my point of view. And I also think it's good that from a traffic point of view around the site at the moment, it is hard work when you've got cars parked all over the place, and this hopefully will take that away. And I do think that's going to be better. From my point of view, I think it's a good application and I would be for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Molyneux. Councillor Bretherton.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair. Just a few points. I've listened to the debate, etc. My concern would be during the construction phase, and what colleagues have already mentioned about the vehicles going through Lompton Village. If it's all at all possible, could we have a condition where we try and route them through down the A59 in that way?
That's what we've just been discussing.
And also, as Councillor Shaw pointed out, with it being a secure access, we could have a situation where vehicles are backing up before they get security clearance. So we need some kind of schedule where throughout different times of day. Thank you.
Catherine, do you want to come in on that?
Chair, just going to go back to what condition 4 actually asks for. Just bear with me. It may already ask for.
It's already.
Yeah, it's included.
It's included.
No, it isn't. Not specifically.
Parking vehicles inside of the two, loading and unloading.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have got something that would cover that type of thing.
Okay, Councillor Bretherton. Right. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks very much. I'll be very brief. I'd just like to say thank you to the resident who came forward and talked tonight. You know, I think as a committee, I'm probably going to support the application. I do, and I feel like sometimes that can be frustrating to residents. But you know, I think it's really good they come forward so we can look at conditions that we put on the applications. You know, it's a really ambitious plan. I was a little bit surprised that the electrical vehicle points were only about 10% of spaces. I thought that could be a bit more ambitious considering it's built for the future. But I hope that the constabulary will add to that over time. And then just more of a factual point. So I think the Police Crime Commissioner said that the site after the development would be more biodiverse. Is that the assessment we have as a council? I know we take biodiversity quite seriously, or is the jury still out on that?
Excuse me. Yeah, the site will be more biodiverse. We've had a full ecological assessment. Some of it you can see, some of it you can't see. It's been assessed in terms of the new BNG requirement, which it isn't mandated, but it's been done anyway, and we're happy with that. In terms of electric vehicle charging points, we have no statutory requirement for charging points. There's nothing in our local plan or in any of our policies requiring it, a percentage. We asked for 10% and the applicant has given us 10%. But if they refuse to give us 10%, to give us anything, we have no policy whatsoever for that. That's a future project.
Right, okay, so we have had an proposal for approval from Councillor Williams, seconded by Matt Farnworth. Do we have any other proposals on this item?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest.
Right, okay, so we're going to go to the vote, and this is for approval with changes of conditions to point 29. Yeah, are we all sure on what we're voting for? And condition 4. Yeah. So if we can go, Alex. 4 and 29.
And condition 3 was a power notice as well.
And condition 3.
That's piling notice.
Piling notice. We're happy.
That's the 3-dimension, Chair.
Condition 37, does it reverse reserve letters?
Debbie, come on, you've got a cough.
I was just going to say we need to also change the same conditions on the outline. There are equivalent conditions. There are 2 sets of conditions, so it will be for the full and the outline. Same conditions, just different condition numbers.
Right, okay, can we go to the electronic vote then, if we're all happy with, would we like some more conditions put in on that? Okay, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the application subject to conditions and subject to amendments to those conditions as outlined by planning officers.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex. If that was the only application you came for this evening, we're going to have a slight recess now until we have item number 12. Okay, thanks very much for coming. If you've represented, thanks very much for representations. Thank you.
I've had Holly's not there. It's not. No, but I've emailed.
Okay, if we could take our seats as soon as possible, please. Okay, item 12 on the agenda this evening, as I've said at the beginning of the meeting, I moved it forward. The ground floor unit at Worden Hall, Leyland. Debbie, if you'd like to present this report as quickly as possible, and then you can go home.
It's a lot quicker than the last one. This application relates to the old coffee shop at Worden Park, what was the Folly. It's grade 2 listed. There's 2 identical applications, one for planning permission and one for listed building consent, and they relate to change of use of a bar, which is sui generis use class, to the retail class E. Excuse me. Okay, the coffee shop is this one, adjacent to the Derby wing. And when we did the permission for the refurbishment of the whole site, we categorised this as being a bar for use with the wedding venue only. So it was associated with it, and the use class and all the conditions relate to a bar for the wedding venue only. This application is for a retrospective change of use to a wine sales business with minor ancillary retail functions. So coffee shop, some takeout food type ancillary works. And by takeout, I mean retail style, not hot food takeaway. There is a condition on there that there can't be hot food takeaway. It is just your normal coffee shop type hot food removal. We would also restrict the use applied so that it can't transfer via the use class into another retail unit or anything else within the E-class, which covers a whole gamut of all sorts of different business types now. There is no advertisement consent, but that can be dealt with separately as necessary. No representation, and it's policy compliant. So we go with approval of the planning permission and consent of the listed building consent, with conditions, and the conditions have been agreed by the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. We've got nobody wanting to speak on this in favour or against it, so I'm opening straight up to committee. Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Debbie, for the presentation. I think it's quite a straightforward report. I'm happy to propose approval.
Thanks for that, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, it just seems like a minor technical change to enable a business there. Very comprehensive enough report, so I'm happy to second it.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. Any other proposals? Okay, so that we've had a proposal for approval from Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Williams. Yeah, 2 votes on this one. All right, so it's a listed building vote as well on this one. Councillor Williams.
Providing Councillor Roberts is effectively proposed twice, then I will second twice.
Indeed, Chair.
Okay, so we're going for approval on both these applications. Okay. Can we go to the electronic vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have unanimously voted to approve the application for planning permission and also listed building consent.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for that, Alex. Okay, moving on swiftly. Thanks for attending this evening, Debbie. I know it's been hard work for you, but you can't have any sick leave. Okay, before I invite Janice to present this application, I'm advising committee that although items 7 and 8 are going to be presented together, we will debate and vote on each application separately. Okay, so Janice, if you would like to present Land West of Lancashire Business Park, Farrington, as items 7 and 8.
Thank you, Chair. So, just as a bit of background, outline planning permission was granted in May 2021 for up to 56,904 square metres of light industrial, general industrial, storage and distribution with ancillary office floor space, together with the means of access on the employment site allocated under Local Plan Policy E2 as Site F, Land of West of Lancashire Business Park. So the outline approval was followed by a reserve matters in April 2022 for a phase 1, a large single building with ancillary office space, and this building has been completed. It was then followed by 2 applications for phase 2 of the development for 3 further buildings. At the Dream Planning Committee, members refused the 2 applications due to overlooking, overshadowing and appearing overbearing to residents of Grasmere Avenue, and also highway safety and capacity in respect of the full application. So the 2 applications now before you represent amended schemes to those 2 applications and seek to address the concerns raised. In summary, the units have been reduced by 2 metres in height and now have a double hip roofs, which also reduces the mass. Unit 3 has been subdivided into 2 smaller units, and the colour palette has changed just to break down the elevations. And also a traffic note has been submitted in respect of the full application. So on this slide, the lilac area shows the phase 2 in relation to the allocated site. So the first application seeks reserve matters approval for 3 buildings with ancillary office space and associated works. This application also proposes updates to the landscaping approved for the wider site under phase 1 permission. So this is the site layout plan and shows the location of the 3 units proposed under the reserve matters, together with Unit 5 proposed under the separate full application. So this one just shows Unit 2, which will measure 41 by 30 metres, with a double hip roof with a ridge height of 10.8 metres and an eaves height of 9.5. So to the front elevation facing the access road will be a 2-storey scale glazed office accommodation, and no windows are proposed in the rear elevation. Unit 3 will measure 49 by 31.5 metres with a hip roof and a ridge height of 11.3 metres and eaves height of 9.5. We'll also have a 2-storey scale glazed office accommodation facing the access road, and again no windows in the rear elevation. And Unit 4 will measure 44 metres by 40 metres, again with a double hip roof over eaves height of 9.5 and ridge height of 10.8 and 2-storey scale glazed office accommodation. All the units will be finished in vertical profile cladding in a mix of grey white, goosewing grey and merlin grey. So the second application seeks full planning permission for Unit 5, a single building of 3,065 square metres with ancillary office space. The reason this is a separate full planning application is because the floor space permitted under the outline approval has been reached by the combined phase 1 development together with the 3 units proposed under reserve matters for phase 2. So Unit 5 will measure 65.5 metres by 44 metres, again with a double hip roof, an eaves height of 9.5 and a ridge height of 10.8, and a 2-storey scale glazed office accommodation to the front elevation. and it will be finished in the same vertical profile cladding as the other 3 units. So this is an artist's impression just to show the waste technology plant, the phase 1 development and the proposals for phase 2, just to give an idea of how they will appear together. So access to the site was approved at outline stage and is off Centurion Way via a roundabout junction. This is the view looking to the site access from Centurion Way. And the little plan above just shows the proposed access. So this slide shows the 4 units with the access road off Centurion Way, which runs along the northern boundary of the site. Unit 2 has its service yard to the western side. Units 3 and 4 have their service yards to the north, and Unit 4 has its service yard to the east. You can also see the proposed car parking areas for each unit. Cycle storage will be within each unit inside them. County Highways had initially queried the provision of a continuous footway along the access road. The applicant has confirmed that this has already been approved and put in place. So condition 6 of the outline approval secure details of a shared 3 metre wide footpath cycleway, and the details were approved as part of a discharge of conditions application by the Public Rights of Way team at County. So this slide just shows the route of the footpath cycleway through the site. So this is an image of the proposed units in relation to the access road and also the residential estate to the left of that slide. So the residential development's off Grasmere Avenue and it lies to the south of the proposed units. Unit 2 you can see is to the northwest of the residential development and not directly opposite, and therefore does not impact on residential properties. The blank rear elevations of units 3 and 4 are opposite the side elevations of dwellings on Grasmere Avenue at a distance of between 42 and 51 metres. Unit 5 is separated from part of the residential development by public open space, which was provided for that residential development. However, although the residential properties all have their side elevations facing towards the common boundary, one dwelling does have windows facing the rear of Unit 5. So this just shows properties with the side elevation facing, but it's this dwelling that has windows. It has 2 ground floor and 1 first floor habitable room window facing the rear of Unit 5. So the applicants provided this cross section to show the property in relation to Unit 5. There is a 52 metre separation distance and intervening landscaping. This spatial separation distance is considered entirely acceptable and within what we would, well in excess of what we would normally require. So this slide also shows the proposed landscaping and the stages of growth and the ground levels, and you'll see that the units at a slightly lower ground level. Additionally, landscaping has been enhanced with the application site along the boundary, and the developers CADIC confirmed that the planting has been brought forward so it can screen the units during the construction phase. So the applicant submitted a visualisation note and some photo montages to demonstrate how the units will appear when viewed from residential development. This shows the landscaping scheme with the previous refused proposal. And this shows how the reduced height building will appear. Additionally, landscaping planting within the Grasmere Avenue residential development, which will also help screen the development, has recently been carried out. In terms of overlooking as I said, there's no windows in the rear elevation of the units and therefore no opportunity for overlooking. In terms of loss of light and overshadowing, the proposed units lie to the north of the residential properties, so this will not be an issue. A daylight and sunlight assessment has been submitted, which follows the BRE guidance and demonstrates that the proposal will not impact on daylight received to the surrounding properties. As per the reserve matters for phase 1, impacts on the reception of digital terrestrial television, FM, DAB and digital satellite television services have been assessed, with the submitted report recommending a number of mitigation measures, and this has been conditioned. There is potential for noise disturbance due to the service yard to Unit 2 being to the west of the building. However, this is mitigated by a 4-metre high acoustic fence to the southwestern corner of the site. And condition 3 has been included to ensure that development is carried out in accordance with that submitted noise impact assessment and the mitigation measures within that document. Environmental Health have no objections. For Unit 5, the service yard area is to the east of the building, and noise and disturbance to residential properties is to be mitigated with the inclusion of a 6-metre high acoustic fence to the boundary. Again, Environmental Health have no objections. So this just shows the extent of the lighting around the units. So obviously it's quite a dark image just to show the lighting in at night time. And this is the submitted lighting plan, which I don't think you can see very well, but it does demonstrate that the lighting does not extend to the neighbouring dwellings, doesn't extend beyond the boundaries. So the Reserve Matters application also proposes some changes to the landscaping scheme that was approved for the whole site as part of the Phase 1 permission. The updated landscaping plans include 13 species more in the proposed tree planting and larger and evergreen tree species. The revised landscaping and ecological enhancements will still be managed as detailed within the Landscape and Ecology Management Plan by Urban Green, which was dated August 2021, as required under Condition 3 of the Phase 1 Reserve Matters approval. The proposed amendments are considered a betterment to the landscaping, and no objections have been received from the ecology advisors. So the applications for units within the E, G, B2 and B8 use classes on this allocated employment site will provide employment opportunities, and its officers view that both the Reserve Matters and full applications are in accordance with the relevant policies both nationally and locally, and therefore the applications are both recommended for approval subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your detailed report, Janice. So obviously this is the two applications, 7 and 8. So we have an objector to item number 7, and Nicola Dilworth. Hi, Nicola. So if you press the speak button and you will be timed, you have 4 minutes to make your objections, okay?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Committee. Thank you for giving the opportunity to share my comments. My property is adjacent to Phase 1 of the Caddick development. It's on Bispam Avenue. And throughout the process, we were promised screening, and within the current application, revised drawing landscaping plan sheet 1 of 5 has been submitted, and this is what I'd just like to talk to you about tonight. I have communicated my concerns about this plan to CADIC by email in October last year and was informed that they were awaiting an update from the landscaping contractor and would revert back when they had a response. This landscaping plan details the planting plan for the land directly opposite our property, and when we've looked at it, we feel it's ineffective. It's ineffective in protecting and screening us from the development. We live very close to the phase 1 site. Our property looks out towards the car park and the main building, and we've been left with no effective screening. So currently we can see the full car park area, which is lit up. We can see vehicle movement, and we can see the full length of the office side of the building, which includes the whole of the second and the third floors of offices. Each floor has around 40 windows. Each of these windows are lit up. Some people have likened this view that we have to us having a cruise ship docked adjacent to our property. Yes, we could also people walking around within the property or within the development, and I'm sure if we can see them, they can probably see us. I would have liked to have shared a picture of the view from our property with you at this point, but I think I wasn't allowed. So you'll just have to take my word that the view from our property of the development is pretty terrible at the moment. And I think you'll know if you've driven down Fylde Avenue and seen the building towering over the houses, that would give you a good idea about what we're looking at from our bedroom windows. So how does this impact on us? The car park is lit up like a sports field, and we have bright lights shining from there into our property. The building itself is obtrusive and it invades our privacy. And this is made even worse because the building is lit up in the evening time when it's dark and it's a 24-hour site. We're also worried about the potential noise from the car park. We feel that we have a right to live in our property without an amount of with an amount of comfort and privacy. Unfortunately, the planting plan designed doesn't give this to us. Have you looked at the details of the plans? I know it's a tiny part of this application, but it's very important to us. To screen the car park and the building, the plans show a single row of 6 to 7 trees on the border of the bunding between our property and the site. These are consisting of sorbus and hawthorn deciduous trees. So in the winter time, they provide absolutely no screening whatsoever. There are also 3 established trees in between us and the development, but again, they're deciduous, and the winter months, they provide absolutely no screening whatsoever. So we're left with 1 row of deciduous trees to protect us against this development. These have already been planted. This has had no impact on the visual aspect that we have at all. And the Planning Enforcement Department have now informed us that all of the boundary planting has been completed. To the left of our property, CADIC have planted a number of well-established evergreen trees. And I want to know really sort of why at the moment this document doesn't have any evergreen trees on it. Why is it doesn't have any established trees on it? Why does it only have a small number of trees on it? And for whatever reason this is, CADIC really could do with helping us and going back and looking back at the plan, establishing why they haven't screened that area between us and the site sufficiently. So I'm asking members of the planning committee tonight to support me, not just me, but because there are other residents affected by the visual effect of this development, and along with anyone who drives down Fylde Avenue who has to look at the overbearing development. I'm asking you to support us and protect us from this situation. Please, I'm asking you not to pass the planting plans without really considering them, maybe putting conditions on them so that they provide an effective screen for residents' properties. I hope you feel that you have a duty to do this, and I hope you feel that you can help me support me to ask CADIC to take ownership of this and be accountable for it. I'd really like a commitment from you and from CADIC that we will have established an effective screening, all year round screening for phase 1, maybe before they move on to the proposed phase 2. Thank you very much for your time and for listening to my comments. As I said, it's a tiny, tiny part of this application, but it's hugely important to us.
Okay, thanks for your presentation. That was obviously, this is a different phase that we're talking about here, so...
I understand that this plan is in your...
I would like you to speak to your ward councillor, okay? Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation, Nicola. Councillor Paul Wharton Hardman wishes to address committee as the neighbouring ward councillor.
Thank you, Chair. My comments relate to both applications and I don't propose to read them twice, so they'll relate to both 7 and 8. What I'm not going to do is sit here and be disingenuous to the residents and argue, saying to refuse this application, because I know it meets legal requirements and we're not going to do that. But what I want to do is say it's crucial to learn from the challenges faced by the residents, particularly in Farrington West during phase 1 of the development. We need to learn from the mistakes, what happened then, and make sure they don't happen again. One significant issue from phase 1 was the disruption caused by overnight works, particularly the noise and light associated with floor levelling. Works went on overnights for many nights for this, and we must ensure residents are not subjected to such inconveniences during this phase. So I propose and request specific conditions be imposed on the hours of work, all building work, to mitigate disturbances to the community, and then can be enforced by the council. Furthermore, I'm aware of the planned access routes on this for access to this site, but I ask the committee to again consider and enforce conditions that restrict access to the site, including pedestrians and vehicles, specifically naming no access from Grasmere Avenue. This, I believe, is necessary to safeguard the community, especially from becoming a rat run with motorbikes, mopeds, etc. So I ask that specific conditions be put on for that. To address concerns about traffic management, I also believe it's essential to condition a traffic routing management plan for construction vehicles. And I specifically ask that an additional condition be added by the committee to ensure that construction vehicles enter the site via the A582 and through Enterprise Drive, negating the need to go through Centurion Way and Stanleyfield Lane, primary residential areas, which will impact on highway safety and residential amenity. Furthermore, in addition to that, I ask that temporary signage should be implemented to guide construction vehicles and therefore safeguard both the construction vehicles and the local community. In terms of lighting, we cannot ignore the glaring issue faced by residents in phase 1, as the resident has just stated, and I believe conditions must be set for lighting not to exceed 20 lux with appropriate downward direction only. If that is conditioned, this will ensure residents are not disturbed by excessive light, emphasising the need to rectify the mistakes made during the phase 1. Regarding construction height, I noticed on the plans it's been sunk into the ground, but again there was issues in phase 1, and I don't know if conditions can be applied, but I do ask if levelling is necessary, it should be done uniformly to its lowest point, avoiding any build-up areas. Again, ensuring fairness to residents and maintaining integrity of the surrounding environment. I do notice it's disappointing the lack of utilisation of roof space for renewable energy and the absence of any grey water system, so I ask the committee to consider any further conditions that encourage sustainable practices, emphasising the need for environmentally conscious decisions in the development. In conclusion, everything I've asked, I ask the committee to consider in phase 2 of the Caddick development as much as possible to condition, to look at the mistakes we made in phase 1 and safeguard the community of Farrington West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wharton Hardman. Right, we have the agent Victoria Coleman with us this evening. Good evening, Victoria. I hope you took note of what the councillor just said.
And I will do the same. I'll speak to both agenda items.
You're going to speak on both?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want 4 minutes, right?
I need 4. It's okay. Thank you, Chair. Members, my name is Victoria Coleman. I work for NJL Consulting and have been advising the applicant Caddick Developments on agenda items 7 and 8, which together comprise phase 2 of the wider Farrington site. Since we attended committee back in June, Caddick have been careful.
I'm sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair. It'd be useful to be able to hear what the lady said. I can't just pick it up. It's going very quickly. Might need to speak more to the microphone or something, but
Sorry,
thank you.
Forward. Since we attended the committee in June, Caddick have been carefully considering feedback and have made significant amendments to their planning applications. In terms of the site context, you will know that the site benefits from outline approval and is allocated in the South Ribble local plan. Caddick has brought forward the 2 phases of the applications. Phase 1 is a large commercial unit and is now home to Victorian Plumbing, providing a significant number of high-skilled jobs. Phase 2, which is being determined tonight, is a series of small commercial units for smaller local businesses. The scale is significantly different to Phase 1, with each unit being approximately 20 times smaller. Caddock has already proven itself as a responsible and considerate developer within South Ribble. Caddock have had ongoing dialogues with local residents and have sought to address matters arising quickly. For example, noting the point about tree planting, they've gone beyond their planning obligations by spending an extra £125,000 on additional trees, which are being planted in locations that have been requested by local residents. They have been thanked for this inclusions, but this planting is ongoing, and the schedule of these trees being planted is being directed by the availability of trees and will continue as these additional trees are delivered on site. Caddock have also opened the new footpath and cycleway significantly in advance of their obligation to do so, and installed an outdoor gym adjacent to the Leyland Loop. Caddock are looking to build upon a relationship built with local residents during the development of Phase 2 and listen to concerns as the development commences. They have already commenced tree planting in this area to ensure that, as requested at previous committees, this planting is established from the get-go and will be built upon. In terms of progress on Phase 2, to reserve their position, Caddock have recently lodged an appeal on the 3-unit scheme refused by members in June. They were disappointed with the refusal and felt the applications were robust, appropriate and aligned with the outline planning permission and local plan allocation. However, that being said, they would still prefer to deliver a locally negotiated planning permission that is approved and supported by local stakeholders and US members. With this in mind, Caddock have done everything they can to make the applications in front of members tonight locally acceptable, and a scheme Caddock and South Ribble are proud to deliver. In doing so, the latest proposals replace the original 3-unit scheme with 4 smaller employment spaces. The smaller unit sizes allows the development to move further away from its closest neighbours on Grasmere Avenue. The distance between the units existing homes at their very closest point is now double the distance advised by the Council's design guidance. The increased separation also provides more space for the landscape buffer, with increased and mature evergreen planting to ensure that the development is screened from view year-round. It's worth noting that the orientation of the buildings is already optimised to mitigate against noise and light for neighbours and is brought through from previous plans. Significantly, the height of the buildings has been reduced by a further 20% since the previous application, making them a similar height to the nearby homes, as you could have seen on the site section. To indicate the extent of which our plans have changed in response to feedback, our latest units are now 21 feet lower than the height parameter set at the outline consent stage. To put that into context, that's a height reduction of 1.5 double-decker buses. The revised scheme has been subject to a residential amenity assessment using verified view imagery, and the specialist consultant has categorically concluded that the proposal will not lead to overshadowing, or have an overbearing effect. All other planning and technical matters across both applications have been thoroughly reviewed and assessed by your consultees and officers and deemed acceptable. To summarise, Caddock consider their applications to not only be robust and appropriate in planning terms, but have gone above and beyond in the spirit of good partnership and in response to feedback. Caddock is a committed and trustworthy partner and are already exceeding responsibilities and expectations as a developer. We ask you to approve these applications so Caddock can deliver this long allocated employment site and deliver the significant benefits, including 170 full-time jobs and increased business growth and economic opportunity in the area. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Victoria. Right, I'm going to open this up to committee now. Notwithstanding, this is item 7, not item 8 that we're debating, okay? Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I was the first person to speak at the last time we discussed this refusal. What was said at the time that residents, the people that moved in onto Grasmere Avenue, are aware of the fact that industrial units were going to be built there. That's slightly different from Phase 1, where the houses were there and then the units were there on top. But we've learned, but we've seen from phase one what the impact of residents has been, and obviously I've been deeply involved in some of that. And it's exactly right that we look at these plans and we've got to carefully consider them and look at them in minute detail. So whilst it's true these buildings are large and to some extent do dominate a horizon, let's not pretend that these buildings are small. They're not. They are still large buildings. The reduction in height in 2 metres from what was originally had before is a significant difference. It's 20% less than what it was, and it's about a 40% reduction on the height of phase one. So they are quite a bit smaller, and these buildings have been split up as well. Instead of large incongruous buildings, they've been split up a bit, but they're still going to have an effect on the residents living there. That's without a doubt. What I'm still concerned about is the planting and the concealment of these buildings while they're still there. There's a significant scheme of planting, and whilst it's possible to get further large trees these days, they're not going to meet 11 metres tall for a significant amount of time, and we've seen that from the drawings that were on there, and that was pointed out in the artist's impressions last time. So the residents are going to have to live with that for quite a while. I've also got concerns over lighting of unit 2. That lighting was to the west, I believe, in the service yard. I don't think there's any conditions on there about lighting. I know there's a lighting plan, but there's nothing there to say. There's nothing there to say on the residents to be turned off for a certain time or anything like that. The lady has mentioned about phase one. The property has been unoccupied, waiting for Victorian Plumbing to move in, but the lights have been on constantly for no apparent reason, and illuminated like a football field. So, I'm just wondering whether there's anything we can do around lighting conditions. I know there's mention of light meters and timings and things like that. I wonder whether we can time that up a bit more. I'll come on to Unit 5 when we get on to discussing that, but it's probably very similar. So the question remains then as to whether we should approve or refuse permission for it. And you've got to understand that the outline permission is for buildings of a much larger scale, and a lot of work's been done to make this as palatable for the residents as possible. There's also an issue if we refuse this, then it's because there's been so much work done and it's quite probably overturned at appeal, and they could quite easily have appealed the previous application as well. Developers have tried to mitigate that with lots of different things, and even though I've got serious reservations about it, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place with this. I'm not sure any more improvement can be made than what's on offer. So with the misgivings of it, and I'd rather it not be there, but I think approval is going to have to be a sensible choice. So I would propose approval.
Is that with the traffic management plan, Councillor Williams?
I would suggest that would be a good. I would suggest that would be a good idea. I think it served to clarify things in the last application. We're going to treat it separately, but I think the A582 in Lancashire Business Park is a very sensible idea, as well as something on lighting conditions.
Catherine wants to come in again.
Hello, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've just been looking at the outline permission, because obviously this is a reserved matters, which is still bound by the conditions on the outline. And the outline permission did include a construction traffic management plan. But what it didn't include, it included parking for vehicles and operatives, loading and unloading, wheel washing, the normal things. But it didn't actually include, it did include periods when materials and trips can be made to the site, and measures to ensure that any construction or delivery vehicles didn't impede access to the adjoining streets or obstruct the public highway. But what it didn't include at that point was a routing plan for construction vehicles. So if members were minded to approve the application and wanted details of vehicle routing during the construction period, we would have to add an additional condition at this stage to the reserved matters permission. But that would be possible.
That's great. Thanks for that, Catherine. Councillor Farnworth.
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, I'd be fully in favour if we could try and get the construction vehicles rerouted. I think Councillor Wharton Hardman spoke very, very well in terms of the conditions and sort of limited access from Grasmere Avenue. That being said, I think as a planning committee, it was evident at the committee in June that we did listen to residents' concerns, and we've stated that those plans, the previous plans, were overbearing. So I'm thankful to the agent and the applicant to go back and reconsider the height and the fact that on the plans, as we can see, the warehouse looks as though it's at the same level as a house. And one other comment from myself is just plead with the applicant, if to continue the work with the screening and with the trees. I think that's essential for the residents, particularly on Grasmere Avenue and nearby. So I'd be in favour of seconding approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Foreman. Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Chair. I know it might sound like a stupid or silly question, but I keep looking back at these pictures, and the only kind of question I've got is around kind of the diagram on page 43. That gives us the idea of the height, but then you kind of flick forward to the pages where it's the old building that's higher and the new one, and there's some very kind of skinny trees, so it doesn't give you kind of get that side angle. And I just wondered whether, to bear in mind what the resident said about the visual screening, whether there's anything more we can do at this stage as a committee to kind of make sure, even in the winter months, there's that visual screening. And I just wouldn't want to let that chance go by.
I'll ask the head of planning to jump in on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that there has been a heck of a lot of additional planting put in by CADIC, and they have improved that with evergreens as well and mature trees. And I think there's still a bit of planting left to go in terms of the mature trees. So that level of planting is much more than you would normally get on a development like this. So I think they've maximised in terms of what they can do there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Elizabeth. Anyone else? Councillor Mulliner, and then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appreciate we're talking phase 2 this evening, but obviously residents have come because they're so concerned about the phase 1 side. CADIC have said this evening that they're willing to listen to residents, and I would just like to say, from a neighbourly point of view, a good relations point of view, would they consider, and I appreciate the residents have come this evening to try and express the problems of that phase 1, but would CADIC consider looking into those problems, even though we're talking phase 2 this evening? I think it's well worth them considering the problems highlighted from phase 1. Thank you.
Okay, Elizabeth, if you'd like to come in and...
Hiya, yeah, just on that point, in relation to phase 1, CADIC have been working very closely with the neighbours and with the planning department to iron out the issues that have happened. And we have, like I said, we've increased planting. There's various other measures that they've done. So that work is ongoing, and they are very receptive to the neighbours. And I think one of the neighbours in particular, who's not here tonight, he'd actually written to CADIC recently to thank them for the extra work that they've done. So I think they have been working very proactively.
Yeah, come back, Councillor Mulliner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just from my point of view, I'm concerned about this. Seems a bit pointless putting trees there that if they've not got the leaves on all year round, you just see straight through them, and it's pointless putting that up there. So providing they're looking at that as well, I think I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, they've added a lot of evergreen trees.
Thank you.
As a result of the June's committee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Thanks, Councillor Mulliner. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think a lot more to add, except this is an industrial site. It was always envisaged that that's what was going to be put there. There's some very large buildings on that site, and I know it's difficult when for the housing, but to be quite honest, it was the housing that paid for the industrial site. I mean, I remember it many, many years ago, which is a bit unfortunate, but to be quite honest, I will support approval, Chair, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. You've made a proposal, Councillor Williams.
Just want to clarify one point that I'm not sure I got an answer to, was the lighting. Because I did question about whether something could be done with the lighting, any lighting conditions, but I'm not sure.
Janice, could you come back on that, and then I'm going to close up this debate.
Yeah, I've included condition 4 to require the development to be carried out fully in accordance with the external lighting strategy. But I can review that lighting strategy and see if there is anything about lux levels and such like, if that, and tighten the wording up.
Yeah, just basically timings, when the timings and when the property's occupied. Because obviously we've learned from phase 1 that whilst the property is unoccupied and being built out, that car park has been on solidly all the time when there's no need for it.
I think one of the issues was, and it's been rectified now, that the shrouds hadn't been put on the lighting when we first received a complaint, but I think that's been done now. But yeah, I'll certainly look at that lighting strategy and see if we can tighten up the wording to that condition.
Okay, so are you still happy with your proposal for approval, Councillor Williams? Yeah, okay, and we've had it seconded by Councillor Farnworth. Do we have any more proposals on item 7? No, Councillor Roberts. No, Councillor Roberts. So we will go to the vote. This is for approval on item number 7, and then we will debate item number 8.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve unanimously the application for reserved matters subject to conditions, with an additional condition regarding a routing plan during the construction phase and amendments to condition 4 regarding lighting.
That's great. Thanks for that. Okay, let's get into the debate on item number 8. Councillor Williams.
I will be brief this time. Providing the same conditions, we'll go on to 8 regarding the lighting and the traffic management. I think traffic management was the one we queried it on last time. The additional traffic into the site, providing there's a traffic management plan, I can't see any reason why with my same misgivings, why we can't propose approval.
Seconded.
Councillor Farnworth.
Thanks, Chair. Seconded.
Seconded. Janice, those conditions can be put on, can't they?
Sorry, I was just having a quick check on the conditions that we'd already included. Well, condition 10 was the lighting one, so I'll have a review of that as per the other application. Right, and then the additional condition for the routing plan that needs to go on that. Yeah.
Okay, you happy with that? Yeah. Do I have any other proposals on item 8? Because we've had a proposal for approval and a seconder. No. Okay. Can we go to the electronic vote on item 8? This is for approval.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the application for planning permission, subject to conditions and subject to the same changes to the conditions as imposed in agenda item 7. Okay, thanks
Very much for that, Alex. Let's move on then quickly to agenda item number 9, which is 47 Buff Lane, Leyland. Chris, would you like to present this item, please?
Thank you, Chair.
The application relates to an end two-storey commercial unit fronting Huff Lane. The application site is within Leyland Town Centre, as defined by policy E3 of the South Ribble Local Plan. The premises have been vacant since August of 2022 and were previously used as a bank. And the proposal is for the change of use to a betting office, which is in the sui generis use class, together with a new shop front and the installation of 2 satellites. Whilst policy E3 of the local plan is focused on achieving high levels of retail uses in the town centre area, shopping habits have unquestionably changed since the adoption of the local plan in 2015. The NPPF has, however, regularly been updated in response to issues and government policy. Town centre strategies contained within the NPPF are therefore considered to be more relevant than aspects of the local plan town centre policies which are more dated. Paragraph 90 of the NPPF encourages town centres to be more diverse against a backdrop of the decline of retail. The NPPF encourages a range of uses in town centres and decision makers to respond to rapid changes in the retail and leisure industries, which the proposed use arguably falls. Whilst not according with the requirements of policy E3 in terms of the current retail provision in Leyland Town Centre, the proposal is considered to accord with the NPPF by achieving a mix of retail and leisure uses and would enhance the vitality and viability of the Leyland Town Centre by bringing a long-term vacant unit back into use. The satellites would be installed on the rear of elevation, with the proposed changes to the shopfront configuration being minimal and would not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area. There are no objections to the proposal from any of the statutory consultees, and for these reasons and those contained within the report, the application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. Short and sweet, but very detailed. Right, we don't have any objections to this application. We don't have anybody wanting to speak in fit. Excuse me, I meant members of the public. You're not members of the public. You're inmates. Well, all right. We have 2 neighbouring ward members wishing to speak on this item. The first one is Councillor Wharton Hardman, because I think he must have registered first. So,
thank you, Chair. Apologies for my So I've come here today mainly with my social justice head on in my lead member role, but also as the ward councillor neighbouring this, requesting refusal of this planning permission for the development based on a number of material considerations with a specific focus on economic impact in our community, town centre amenity and public health. Gambling, as we all know, has the potential to cause wide-ranging harm, not only to individual gamblers, but to families and the society as a whole, which can harm and manifest in various forms, including financial difficulties, mental and physical health issues, strained relationships, and other adverse effects on employment and education. Moreover, a recent government report has been shown to that gambling exacerbates existing health and social inequalities. A recent report shows that Leyland is behind the rest of other parts of Lancashire with regards to significant health inequalities and debts. Despite its relatively small population, the UK has one of the largest gambling markets globally, with the public losing a staggering £14 billion just in 2022 to gambling alone. As a local council, we need to recognise that gambling-related issues harms our residents as a public health issue, and therefore it necessitates a comprehensive response, as harmful gambling is a complex problem with interconnected factors. As I've mentioned about recent reports showing health inequalities in the local area directly impacted by gambling, I believe this is a public health issue. Turning the attention to the proposed development and its implications for Leyland Town Centre, the introduction of a gambling shop, I believe, would provide a non-retail use that fails to enhance the vitality and viability of our town centre, jeopardising its primary retail function. I believe it's especially concerning given the current plans for the regeneration of Leyland Town Centre and the town deal itself. I also believe the application conflicts with national policy emphasising the need for developments to strengthen and focus the shopping offer and town centres, and I believe the proposed development also undermines our town centre shopping offer and the council's strategic objectives within the Leyland town regeneration. As most of you probably know, we already have 3 betting shops on that 396 metre stretch of Hough Lane, 3 betting shops on that road. I believe it creates an over-concentration that is not in line with the council's strategic objectives or national planning policy. The council's approach to main town centre uses explicitly require development to strengthen and focus the shopping offer, which the addition of another betting shop fails to achieve. Whilst I accept all planning applications are considered on their own merit, it must be noted that most recently Blackburn with Darwen Council refused a planning application on exactly similar issues. In essence, I believe the proposed development will have limited potential to generate footfall and will not serve the general public interest in Leyland, South Ribble or the wider community, or enhance the community's overall well-being. Therefore, I urge the committee to consider the broader implications of this development and refuse planning permission. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wharton-Hydeman, for your passionate representations. Right, another neighbouring ward, Councillor Pete Pillinger. Please try not to do a repetition of...
That is exactly what I was going to say, so there's no point in repeating what's already been said. But I do back up what has been said. This is a bigger issue. The gambling industry per se is parasitic on local communities. It takes wealth out of the community. We have a policy in this borough of trying to encourage community expenditure and wealth creation within the borough, keeping it in the borough, but the gambling industry extracts it. There may be greater footfalls in other places, but the people who go into the gambling establishments have less money to spend when they come out of it. And that money doesn't stay within the borough. It goes elsewhere. Just a couple of comments on the responses of the applicant to the objections that have already been made. There is a comment about Betfred closing down, which is pure conjecture, and I think the committee should ignore it. There is also a comment on there being 303 units in the town centre. This isn't about the whole town centre, it's about Hough Lane. And Hough Lane, with 3 other betting establishments, has enough already. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Pillinger. Chris, did you wanted to come in, didn't you, before I fetch in the agent?
Yeah, thank you. Just very briefly, Chair. I'd just like to remind the committee about the need to focus on material planning considerations, of which moral issues associated with the proposal are not one. Betting offices are lawful and legitimate businesses that are regulated by the government. So the issues to do with potential social, economic aspects of things and deprivation, they would not be for material planning considerations to be put before committee. Obviously, the report picks up on aspects in terms of retail viability and vitality of the town centres. Those very much are material planning considerations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for those points, Chris. Right, I'm going to bring in the agent. Is it Chem?
Yes, it is.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
If you'd like to present to the committee, you've got 4 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jem Kasana. I am a Town Planning Director with Lichfields, and I represent the applicant Boyle Sports. We welcome the case officer's thorough and well-considered report that recommends approval for the proposals. As your officers have identified, the key policy test in the adopted plan is E3. This policy, however, is out of date and, as confirmed by your officers, does not reflect the latest government position on town centres. Since the adoption of the local plan in 2015, the role and function of town centres has changed dramatically, with a decline in traditional retailers. This is in part due to the rise in online shopping, which has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Likewise, since the adoption of the plan, the use classes order has been amended, seeking to provide more flexibility for town centres. Going forwards, non-traditional uses are envisaged to play an increasingly important role in contributing to the vitality and viability of town centres. NPPF, which was updated just recently in December 2023, encourages town centres to become more diverse and requires decision makers to respond to the rapid changes in the retail and leisure industries. Leisure uses, including betting offices, are appropriate main town centre uses. This is set out in Annex 2 of NPPF. Despite being out of date, the underlying objective of Policy E3 is to maintain vitality and viability of town centres, and the proposed development would achieve this for a number of reasons. The proposed change of use would not result in the loss of a traditional retailer. The previous use was a bank. That would have been A2. Since HSBC vacated the site in August 2022, the site has remained vacant despite active marketing. This is thoroughly evidenced in the submission. According to the Council's own retail position statement dated 2022, there are 13 vacant units across the town centre, with 6 in the primary retail frontage. This high vacancy rate is clearly detracting from the vibrancy and vitality of the centre, and is perhaps a further demonstration of the lack of demand from traditional retailers. Betting offices actively contribute to town centre vitality and viability. This has been evidenced and confirmed consistently at Appeal nationally. Betting offices, as I mentioned earlier, are appropriate main town centre uses and a destination in their own right. They increase footfall, with their customers spending money in nearby shops and services. The proposed change of use would complement the existing town centre offer and diversify the range of services available to consumers in accordance with the town centre master plan. Overall, the introduction of a betting office would not only maintain the vitality and viability of the town centre, but in our opinion would enhance it. And this would be in accordance with Policy E3. There are minor external alterations included in the proposal, but your officers have concluded that these would not have a detrimental impact on the character and appearance of the area. We heard from the ward councillors who raised questions around social well-being, but robust licensing arrangements are in place to ensure the health and well-being of the public are protected. This is not a matter for planning. There have only been 2 letters of objection received, and these have been submitted on behalf of other existing betting office operators seeking to undermine competition, regardless of the planning merits of the case. The proposed development is considered by your officers to be in accordance with the adopted development plan and NPPF. We respectfully request that your officers' well-considered recommendation to approve is followed and that planning permission is granted. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take questions, but of course, if I'm permitted to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Chen. Well done. Right, quickly then, let's open it up to committee. Councillor Williams, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I know I've spoken already a lot tonight. Unfortunately, this isn't the one I'm going to have to speak on. We've heard all sorts of reasons why betting shops in town centres aren't desirable, from the social effects and the health effects. And whilst it remains government policy, we have licensing and regulation that then shops have to abide by rules and policies. It's quite often council services such as our own that have to bear the brunt of when these government policies and these licensing things fail. It's for no reason that we have housing services, social prescribing and the like to try and reverse the damage that excessive and addictive gambling can cause. That said, however, we may all dislike the fact there's an application for a gambling premises. We have to consider it on its own merits and apply planning considerations to it. It's not about what we like or what we don't like. It's about planning consideration. it's good to see that an empty unit could come back into use within the focal point of our high street. And let's remember, Hough Lane is the focal point of our high street here, and this is where the policy E3 applies. It currently stipulates there should be 60% of primary retail on Hough Lane, and yes, policy took effect some time ago, and yes, it's true there's been significant changes in habits. It still only stands at 30%, not 60%, which is significantly below. But it doesn't mean itself that the policy itself should be completely disregarded. It's within our gift as a committee to interpret this and apply the policy and guidance from the NPPF and latest things that apply. The NPPF guidance, so paragraph 90, says we need to be more diverse, and a diverse range of uses. So it states we should consider other uses where it would enhance the viability and the vitality of the town centre. So when we're looking at vitality, we also have to look at variety. Is the town centre a place where there is sufficient opportunities for retail, leisure and other use? Are there sufficient opportunities to do a diverse range of things? Within 50 yards of this application, there are 3 other betting shops. Within 50 yards of this application. In my opinion, doesn't increase the vitality of it, it harms it. The application has said within the mitigation, they're assuming one of the neighbour outlets is closing and this is merely a replacement. And we have to consider this evening. And as far as I'm aware, there are no plans for it to go anywhere. They've also stated there are 303 retail premises in Leyland Town Centre. And I'm the ward councillor for Leyland Central. There are not 303 premises down Hough Lane. Having 4 premises of this nature does nothing for the town centre and its viability, and there is nothing on the application that would drive further footfall into the town centre over and above the 3 premises that already exist. So, as regards bringing an empty unit back into use, that's a significant argument, but I don't think it's been proved that it's been out of use for that long. It's stated that the premises become vacant in September 22 and then purchased in April 23. That's 6 months. So if somebody's going to purchase something, there must be demand. So why else buy it? If it's out of use, it would stay on the market. Somebody's bought it within 6 months. The council is currently spending a huge amount of money revitalising the town centre from the town deal and attracting new and innovative experiences. And I think we'd fail in our mission if we allow an over-proliferation of betting shops onto our retail frontage on Hough Lane. I'm sure we all keep our ears to the ground and eyes on social media. And people want to see real variety in the shopping centres. Amongst other types of premises, there seems to be an over-proliferation of these days. Betting shops is one of them. And I defy anybody not to have heard that. And I think we should propose refusal for the following reason, that this application is contrary to policy E3 of our local plan and guidance from the NPPF on the vitality and viability of town centres, as it fails to meet the target percentage and is not proven to enhance the viability and vitality of the town centre due to over-proliferation. So I propose refusal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Catherine, would you like to update us on the new NPPF guidelines?
I can do, Chair, but I think we just need to go back to obviously some of the points that have been made and the points that Chris made earlier. It is very difficult in a sort of planning perspective to look at issues relating to the social justice arguments that the neighbouring ward councillors raised. I understand the points that have been raised by Councillor Williams in terms of the vitality of the town centre and the percentage of retail. But as Chris mentioned earlier, the policies in our own local plan are out of date. It's quite a long time since inspectors have supported policies that rigidly look for a certain percentage of retail uses within town centres, because they understand that the retail market has changed, as the agent suggested, through COVID, through the move to online retail. Delivering a high percentage of retail units in a town centre is no longer something that government policy, is looking to do. It looks to diversify the range of things within a town centre, which leisure uses are. And obviously, I understand your point here that there could be a large number of similar facilities within the town centre, but And in this particular case, it's betting officers you're referring to. But that's not uncommon within centres. As the traditional retail offer declines, we do see a proliferation of other service uses like coffee shops, nail bars, not your traditional retail facility. And it is very difficult. As we said, the objections to this application that have been received are largely on competition grounds. I think if members were looking to refuse this application based on policy E3, it may be something that would be very difficult for us to substantiate at appeal. And that's basically my advice.
Okay, thanks very much, Catherine. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll keep this fairly short, really. I'll just have a little bit of jest into it before I speak. I mean, what's worse, a betting office or a bank? They both take the money off you. But it works that way. None of it ends up in the community. But to be quite honest, Chair, this is a good report from the officers. It covers all the eventualities. High streets have changed hugely. The danger with betting is not from street. The danger is on the phone. And that's where it comes from, digital. And this is completely different. And I assume something's got to go to licensing at some stage where they might discuss other aspects of it. But from a planning point of view, I'm going to propose approval, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. So I've got a proposal for refusal from Councillor Williams. Now a proposal for approval from Councillor Smith. Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Chair. It has been stated that this application gives us a mix of retail and leisure facilities. What concerns me, we've no objections from the local councillors and we've no objections from local residents. That's a real concern for me in that respect. You can't, are you though? Well, I apologise for that, and that's my fault.
But he can't speak, he's on committee.
No, I appreciate that, right. But we've got one of the local councillors then saying that, the others not. But from that point of view, I must apologise from that point of view. But I am concerned that the way this, where we talk about gambling, I have a concern over gambling, you know, like everybody else around this table. But as Councillor Smith mentioned, it's just as easy to pick up a phone or to go online, and you can do it that way as well. The officers are saying that obviously this is compliant. And if they're saying it's compliant, I can't see how we can really go against that. You know, so from my point of view, I would say, unfortunately, although I don't necessarily agree with the gambling side, that this is something that we would have to put through. So I would second Councillor Smith.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Molyneux. So we've got a proposal for approval, Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Molyneux. And a proposal for refusal from Councillor Williams. Do I have a seconder for the refusal? Seconded, sir. Seconded for refusal, Councillor Sharples. Okay. Do we have any other proposals? No, okay. Well, we'll go to the... So we had an amendment for refusal from Councillor Williams, but then a proposal for approval from Councillor Smith. So we will go to the vote on approval first. Okay? Yes, approval first, because you actually proposed an amendment to the officer's recommendation for approval. You proposed an amendment for refusal. So we take Councillor Smith's proposal first. So this is for approval of number 47 Huff Lane.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve the application subject to conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Alex. Let's move on then to item number 10, which is number 16 Liverpool Road, Penwortham. Janice, if you'd like to present this item, please.
Yeah. Sorry, just bear with me. It's not moving on. It's frozen.
It's frozen on the screen. There you go. Can we undo that one?
That one, thank you.
Just use. We on this one, yeah.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
use them arrows.
Yeah, cheers. Sorry about that. I'm actually going to do one presentation for the next two items because they both relate to the same premises. So yeah, there's two applications relating to the drinking establishment known as 16 on the Hill, located on the corner of Priory Lane and Liverpool Road, both within the Penwitham District Centre. So, planning approval was granted in 2019 for a change of use from a cafe to a drinking establishment, and a number of conditions were imposed, with conditions 9 and 10 restricting the hours of use at the external seating area until 2000 hours. So the first of these two current applications proposes a variation of conditions 9 and 10 of the change of use permission to allow for the external seating area to be used until 2200 hours. However, during consideration of the application, it was noted that a further application for the erection of a pergola over the external seating area had also a condition restricting its use until 2000 hours. Therefore, the second application was submitted and seeks to vary condition 3 of the planning permission for the pergola to extend the hours of use of it until 2200 hours in line with the seating area conditions. It's just a picture of the external area and the pergola over. Members will recall there was two applications came before committee in November, at the November meeting, where neighbouring businesses, the Ginger Ale and Fairham's Gin, were granted permission to extend the hours of use of their external seating areas. A further application for the adjacent 1260 Craft and Crust restaurant was also approved under delegated powers. As such, it is consistent to allow number 16 on the Hill to also use the outside area until 2200 hours. And particularly as the first floor of number 16 is in commercial use, not in residential use, as was the case with the other properties. So the applications are both recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for those two presentations, Janice. Okay, so I'm going to open up to committee on item 10. This is for the external seating area to be used until 10 o'clock. 2200 hours. Councillor David Shaw.
Yeah, Chair. I seem to recall in 2019 when this thing first came up, one of the other venues was also on the same agenda, and this one I actually voted against, but on totally different grounds to the hours. It was actually on a delivery aspect, which I'll freely admit I was wrong on. The rest of the committee allowed it through. I think Janice has pointed out that the premises above is commercial. We don't have any of the usual problems with that. What you have to do, I think, to do with the vitality of the whole Penwitham strip, is to play fair by the businesses. And the other businesses have now been extended to 10 o'clock. I think it's only fair that this does. So I propose approval. approval. Sorry, thank you.
It's all right, Councillor Shaw. I've got Councillor Farnworth and Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to second Councillor Shaw's proposal. I think we've got to play fair to the rest of the businesses on Liverpool Road. It attracts a really good clientele, and I'd hope it wouldn't cause any issues. So I'd be happy to second.
Thanks, Councillor Farnworth. Councillor Smith.
Nothing to add, Chair. I support it. Thank you.
Have we got any other proposals? Okay, let's go straight to the vote then. This is for the approval on item 10, the external seating area extension of hours. Okay, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the variation of conditions 9 and 11.
Thanks for that. Okay, and on to item 11, the pergola. Councillor Shaw, do I take it?
Same.
Councillor Smith, second. Any other proposals? Can we go to the vote on item 11, the extended, 2200 hours. I'm English, I said 10 o'clock. Okay, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the variation of the condition to allow use of the pergola until 2200 hours.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure this evening. Thank you all very, very much. And I make it 9:02.